Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Venture, watching the stars shift as his ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The massive space station ahead of them looked like a giant wheel spinning slowly in the darkness. Lights dotted its surface like tiny jewels, and ships of strange shapes moved around it like metal insects. "There it is, Commander," said his communications officer, Katie Walsh. "A Galactic Council station. First time humans have ever been." "Invited here," Jake nodded, feeling his heart beat faster. This was the moment Earth had been waiting for since they first detected alien signals 50 years ago. Finally, humanity would take its place among the stars with other intelligent species. "All crew, prepare for docking," Jake announced over the ship's speakers. "Today we make history." The docking process took 2 hours. Jake watched as alien ships moved past them, each one built in ways that seemed impossible. Some were long and thin like glass needles. Others were round and covered in what looked like living coral. One ship appeared to be made entirely of crystal that caught the station's lights and threw rainbow patterns across space. Dr. Alex Turner, the ship's science officer, stood beside Jake with wide eyes. "Look at those designs," he whispered. "The materials they must use, the technology." "Focus, Alex," Jake said quietly. "We're here to make friends, not just study them." The docking bay was huge, easily 10 times larger than anything on Earth. The USS Venture looked small and crude next to the other ships. As the airlock opened, Jake felt the artificial gravity shift. It was lighter here, maybe a third of what he was used to on Earth. He had to be careful not to bounce when he walked. Captain Lisa Carter, Earth's chief diplomat, led the human delegation. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Behind her walked 5 other humans, each chosen for their skills and ability to represent Earth well. The alien welcoming committee was waiting for them. Jake had seen pictures, but seeing them in person was different. The Zephyrians were tall and thin, almost like stretched-out humans with pale blue skin. They moved with flowing grace, but Jake noticed they seemed to glide rather than walk normally. The Vortani were. Even stranger. They looked like living statues made of clear crystal, with light dancing inside their bodies. When they moved, it was slow and careful, as if they might break if they went too fast. But it was the hegemony delegates that drew Jake's attention. They were amphibious beings, with smooth gray-green skin and large eyes that never seemed to blink. They stood in a group, watching the humans with what looked like amusement. "Welcome, beings of Earth," said the lead Zephyrian in perfect English. "I am Ambassador Valnara. We will escort you to the council chamber." As they walked through the station's corridors, Jake noticed more things. The walls were thin and seemed fragile. The floor felt soft under his boots. Everything was built light and delicate, as if the builders had never needed to worry about things being strong. Other aliens stopped to stare at the humans as they passed. Jake heard whispers in languages he didn't understand, but the tone was clear enough. Some sounded curious. Others sounded dismissive. A few sounded like they were laughing. The council chamber was enormous, with seats arranged in circles that rose up like a stadium. Hundreds of different alien species sat in those seats, representing worlds from across the galaxy. The humans were led to a small section near the back, clearly meant for observers rather than participants. Council Prime Zector of the Hegemony stood at the center of the chamber. He was larger than the other Hegemony delegates, with darker skin and scars that suggested he had seen battle. When he spoke, his voice carried easily through the chamber. "We gathered today to consider the petition of the species known as humans," he began. "They come from the 3rd planet of a yellow star, a world they call Earth." Jake felt proud as he listened to the description of humanity's achievements. Their art, their science, their exploration of space. But as Zector continued, the tone began to change. "However," the Council Prime said, "we must consider whether this species is truly ready for membership in our community. They come from what they call a heavy world, with gravity more than 3 times what most of us consider normal." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Jake saw some aliens looking at the humans with what looked like pity. "This high gravity has Shape them in ways that concern us, Zektor continued. Look at their thick bones, their dense muscle mass. They are built for crude physical labor, not the refined work of galactic civilization. A Zephyrian delegate stood up. Council Prime? Surely we should judge them by their minds, not their bodies. Of course, Zektor replied smoothly. But consider this, they still use chemical rockets to reach space. They build with crude metals and concrete. Their cities are heavy and ugly, built to withstand their world's crushing gravity. Is this the kind of thinking we want in our council? Jake felt his face burn with embarrassment. Around him, his crew stayed quiet, but he could see their anger. A Vortani delegate spoke next, its voice like music played on crystal bells. Their technology is primitive by our standards. They have barely left their own solar system. What could they possibly contribute to our advanced civilization? Exactly, said another hegemony delegate. They are suited for manual labor, perhaps. Mining operations on heavy worlds where our equipment cannot function, but diplomacy, science, art? These require a refinement that their brutal evolution has not provided. The debate continued for hours. Jake listened as alien after alien spoke about humanity's limitations. They talked about humans like they were discussing a useful but inferior species of animal. Finally, Zektor called for order. We have heard enough. The Council will now vote on Earth's petition for membership. The vote was quick and decisive. Red lights appeared on most of the alien displays, indicating rejection. Only a few green lights showed support. The petition is denied, Zektor announced. However, in recognition of their effort to reach us, we offer the humans observer status. They may maintain a small presence on this station and observe our proceedings. Perhaps in time, they will develop the refinement necessary for true membership. Captain Carter stood up slowly. Jake could see her hands shaking slightly, but her voice was steady when she spoke. We accept your offer of observer status, she said. We thank the Council for this opportunity to learn from your advanced civilizations. As the Council session ended, Jake watched the aliens leave. Some ignored the humans completely. Others gave them looks that seemed almost sympathetic, as if they were looking at children who had tried to join adult conversations. The humans were escorted to their quarters in the station's outer ring. The rooms were small and clearly designed for temporary visitors, not permanent residents. The artificial gravity was still light, making Jake feel like he might float away if he moved too quickly. Well, said Katie Walsh once they were alone. That went better than I expected. Better? Asked Dr. Turner. They basically called us primitive cavemen. They offered us observer status, Captain Carter pointed out. That's more than we had yesterday. Jake walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, with its heavy gravity and thick atmosphere. The world that had forged humanity in its crushing embrace. The world these aliens saw as a limitation. They think we're weak, Jake said quietly. They think our world made us slow and stupid. Maybe, Carter replied. But we're here, aren't we? We crossed the galaxy to reach them. That has to count for something. Jake nodded, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. The aliens moved so carefully, so delicately. Even in their own station, they seemed fragile dot as he watched an alien maintenance crew work on a nearby ship. Jake noticed something interesting. They moved slowly, using mechanical lifts and support systems for tasks that seemed simple. Their tools were light and precise, designed for beings who couldn't apply much force. For the first time since arriving, Jake smiled. Maybe the aliens were right about humans being different. But maybe being different wasn't always a weakness. 3 weeks had passed since the humans arrived at the Galactic Council station. Jake Morrison had settled into a routine that would have surprised the aliens if they had bothered to pay attention. Every morning he woke up in the low gravity, feeling refreshed and energetic. What the aliens intended as a punishment had become something entirely different. The human quarters were located in the station's outer ring, far from the important diplomatic areas. The aliens had given them the smallest possible space, clearly hoping the humans would feel isolated and eventually leave. Instead, Jake found himself enjoying the separation. It gave his team privacy to observe and learn without constant alien. Supervision. Dr. Alex Turner had become fascinated with daily life on the station. He spent hours in the common areas, watching how different species moved and interacted. His notebook was filled with observations that painted a picture the aliens probably didn't want him to see. "Look at this," Alex said, showing Jake his latest notes. "The Zephyrians can barely carry their own equipment. I watched a maintenance crew yesterday. It took 6 of them to move a power unit that weighs maybe 50 pounds. Jake examined the notes. Alex had been tracking the physical capabilities of every species on the station. The results were eye-opening. "The Vortani are even more limited," Alex continued. "They move like they're made of glass because they basically are. I saw one accidentally bump into a wall panel and crack his arm. Had to get medical treatment for what we'd consider a minor scrape." Katie Walsh joined them, carrying a food tray from the station's cafeteria. She had been exploring the station's public areas, making friends with some of the more curious aliens. "You should see the security office," she said, sitting down carefully in the light gravity. "Their weapons are designed for beings who can barely lift 10 pounds. The energy settings are so low they probably wouldn't even stun a human." Jake raised an eyebrow. "You tested this?" "Not directly," Katie grinned. "But I talked to one of the Zephyrian guards. He was complaining about how heavy his sidearm is. I asked to see it, and he could barely hand it to me without dropping it. The thing weighed maybe 2 pounds. Dr. Turner flipped through more pages of his notes. "It's not just physical strength. Their reflexes are slower too. Everything here is designed for beings who move carefully and think before they act. They can't afford to be quick or impulsive." Jake walked to the window, looking out at the station's structure. From here he could see the main support beams and hull plating. What had seemed impressive from a distance looked different up close. "The construction is interesting too," he said. "Engineer Davis ran some calculations on the materials they use. Everything is built light and flexible. It has to be, or the lower gravity species couldn't live here." Captain Carter entered the room, carrying a tablet with the day's diplomatic reports. She had been attending council sessions as an observer, learning how galactic politics worked. "How are the sessions going?" Jake asked. "Slowly," Carter replied. "They spend hours debating things that seem simple to us. But I'm starting to understand why. Most of these species can't afford to make mistakes. Their technology, their societies, everything is built on being careful and avoiding risks." She sat down and activated the tablet. Today they spent 3 hours discussing a trade dispute between 2 star systems. The problem was simple. One side wanted to increase shipping rates, the other wanted to keep them low. On Earth, we'd negotiate for an hour and reach a compromise. Here, they had to consider every possible outcome, run computer simulations, and get approval from dozens of committees. Alex looked up from his notes. It makes sense when you think about it. Most of these species evolved in low-gravity environments. They never had to deal with the kind of rapid changes and challenges that Earth threw at us. They're not built for quick adaptation. Jake nodded, thinking about Earth's history. Humans had survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and floods. They had learned to adapt quickly or die. The aliens came from more stable, predictable worlds. "What about the hegemony?" Jake asked. "They seem more aggressive than the others." "They are," Carter said, "but even they're limited. I watched Council Prime Zektor during yesterday's session. He had to take 3 rest breaks in 4 hours. Their water world has low gravity too, just like the others." Katie stood up and walked to the equipment locker. "Speaking of physical limitations, has anyone else noticed how they react when we do normal things?" She pulled out a standard Earth toolkit, the kind any human maintenance worker would use. The tools were heavy and solid, built to last in Earth's harsh environment. "Yesterday I helped fix a problem with our air recycling system," Katie said. "The station's maintenance crew was there, and they watched me work. When I picked up this wrench, 3 of them stepped back like I was lifting a piece of heavy machinery. Jake took the wrench from her. It was a normal tool, maybe 3 pounds of solid steel. In the station's low gravity, it felt like it weighed nothing. I think we're starting to understand something the aliens don't, Jake said. They see our heavy world evolution as a limitation, but maybe it's actually an advantage. Dr. Turner closed his notebook and leaned back in his chair. I've been thinking about that too. Every species here evolved in easy conditions, low gravity, stable climates, abundant resources. They never had to become strong or fast or adaptable. But we did, Carter said quietly. Earth made us tough whether we wanted to be or not. Over the following days, Jake began to notice more examples of the aliens' limitations. He watched a Vortani scientist struggle to open a simple storage container. He saw Zephyrian workers using mechanical assist to move equipment that a human child could carry. He observed hegemony delegates taking frequent breaks during long meetings. The humans, meanwhile, were thriving in the station's environment. The low gravity made them feel strong and agile. They moved with confidence while the aliens moved with caution. They worked efficiently while the aliens worked slowly and carefully. One evening, Jake was exercising in the human quarters when alarms started blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed, and alien voices spoke urgently over the communication system. Captain Carter burst into the room. There's been an accident in the main reactor section. Some kind of coolant leak? The station's emergency teams are responding. Jake and his crew rushed to the nearest observation deck. Through the transparent walls, they could see alien emergency workers in the reactor section. They were moving slowly, wearing bulky protective suits that seemed to make movement even more difficult. They're barely making progress, Katie observed. Look how long it's taken them just to reach the problem area. Jake watched the rescue operation with growing frustration. The leak was in a tight space that required quick movement and physical strength to fix. The alien workers were clearly struggling. We could help, he said quietly. They haven't asked, Carter replied. And I doubt they'd accept. As they watched, one of the alien workers collapsed from exhaustion. The others had to stop their work to help him, further delaying the repairs. This is ridiculous, Jake muttered. That's a 15-minute job for a human engineer. Dr. Turner was taking notes again. Look at their equipment. Everything is designed for beings with limited strength and endurance. They can't work quickly even when they need to. The emergency lasted 4 hours. What should have been a simple repair turned into a major operation requiring dozens of workers and specialized equipment. Finally, the alarm stopped and the lights returned to normal. 4 hours, Jake said, shaking his head. 4 hours to fix a coolant leak. Captain Carter looked thoughtful. They're not incompetent. They're just limited by their evolution. Everything they do has to be done slowly and carefully because they can't afford to make mistakes. But we can, Katie said. We're built for making quick decisions and taking calculated risks. Jake nodded, feeling something shift in his understanding. The aliens hadn't offered humans observer status out of kindness. They had done it because they saw humans as inferior. But maybe the truth was more complicated. Maybe the galaxy needed humans more than it realized. Maybe Earth's crushing gravity hadn't made humans weak and primitive. Maybe it had made them exactly what the galaxy was missing. As Jake prepared for sleep that night, he found himself thinking about Earth, the heavy gravity that made every step an effort, the violent weather that forced humans to build strong shelters, the dangerous environment that had shaped human evolution for millions of years. For the first time since arriving at the station, Jake felt proud of his heavy world origins. The aliens could keep their delicate technology and careful politics. When the galaxy needed someone to take risks and get things done, maybe it would be humans who answered the call. Jake Morrison was reading Dr. Turner's latest reports when the emergency alarms started blaring throughout the station. This time the sound was different. Not the steady warning tone they had heard during the reactor incident, but sharp, urgent. Blasts that made every alien on the station move with panic. Captain Carter rushed into the human quarters, her face grim. "We need to get to the council chamber immediately. Something big is happening." The corridors were filled with aliens moving as quickly as their limited abilities allowed. Jake noticed the Zephyrians were actually running, their graceful movements becoming awkward and desperate. The Vortani were being helped along by mechanical supports, their crystal bodies reflecting the emergency lights in chaotic patterns. The council chamber was in chaos when the humans arrived. Alien delegates were shouting in dozens of languages, their voices rising above the translation systems. At the center of it all, Council Prime Zektor was trying to maintain order. "Silence!" Zektor's voice boomed through the chamber. "We have received communication from the Tide Riders. They have seized control of Mining Station Alpha 7. A collective gasp went through the chamber. Jake leaned toward Katie Walsh, who had been studying galactic economics. "What's Mining Station Alpha 7? He whispered. "It's one of the most important facilities in the galaxy," she whispered back. "They mine rare elements that are essential for faster-than-light travel. Without those materials, galactic civilization would collapse." On the main display screen, a holographic map showed the location of the mining station. It was orbiting a small, dense planet marked with warning symbols. "The planet has 2.1 times standard gravity," announced a Zephyrian military advisor. "Our normal forces cannot operate effectively in such conditions." Council Prime Zektor activated another display. The image showed the mining station's leader, a hegemony rebel named Kralvash. Unlike the other hegemony delegates, this one was wearing a mechanical exoskeleton that made him look bigger and more threatening. "People of the galaxy," Kralvash's voice crackled through the speakers. "For too long, the Galactic Council has ignored the needs of the working classes. We who risk our lives mining the materials that power your ships and stations. Today, that changes." The rebel leader gestured to the mining equipment visible behind him. "We have taken control of Alpha 7 and declare our independence from the Council. We demand recognition as a sovereign power and fair compensation for our labor." "This is unacceptable," Zektor replied. "Return the station immediately and we will consider your grievances through proper channels," Kralvash laughed bitterly. "We have tried proper channels for decades. You ignore us because we are expendable. Well, let's see how expendable we are." Now, the transmission switched to show the mining equipment. Explosive charges were attached to the main processors and refineries. "You have 48 hours to meet our demands. If you do not, we will destroy everything. The galaxy can learn to live without faster-than-light travel." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Jake could see the fear in the aliens' eyes. Without the rare materials from Alpha 7, their entire civilization would be crippled. A Vortani delegate spoke first, its crystalline voice shaking. "We must negotiate. We cannot risk losing the mining station. Negotiate with terrorists?" A Zephyrian replied angrily, "That will only encourage more rebellions." "Then what do you suggest?" asked another delegate. "Our military forces cannot operate on a high-gravity world." The debate went on for hours. Jake listened as the aliens discussed their options, each one more desperate than the last. Their ships could not land on the planet without crushing their crews. Their combat suits were not designed for heavy gravity. The few species that came from higher gravity worlds were either too slow or too few in number to mount an effective assault. As the discussion continued, Jake began to understand the true scope of the problem. The galactic military was designed for fighting in space or on low-gravity worlds. They had never needed to deal with the kind of environment that Earth's children considered normal. Finally, Council Prime Zektor called for a recess. The alien delegates filed out of the chamber, their conversations worried and uncertain. Jake and his crew stayed behind, discussing what they had heard. "They're in real trouble," Dr. Turner said quietly. "This rebel group has chosen the perfect target. The aliens can't touch them as long as they stay on that high-gravity world." "Could we help?" Katie asked. "I mean, 2.1 times Earth gravity is heavy. but it's not impossible for us. Captain Carter looked thoughtful. It's not our fight. We're just observers here. But if the galactic economy collapses, it affects everyone, Jake pointed out, including Earth. Before anyone could respond, Council Prime Zektor approached their section. The large hegemony leader looked tired and defeated, his earlier arrogance completely gone. Captain Carter, he said formally, might I speak with you privately? Carter nodded and followed Zektor to a small conference room adjacent to the main chamber. Jake and the others waited anxiously for nearly an hour before she returned. Well, Jake asked. Carter sat down heavily. They want our help. Zektor admitted that they have no way to deal with the situation. Their best military strategists have run every possible scenario, and they all end in failure. What exactly are they asking? Dr. Turner wanted to know. They want us to somehow resolve the crisis. Carter replied, if we can do it, they'll grant us full membership in the Galactic Council, complete voting rights, access to all galactic technology, and recognition as a major power. Katie whistled softly. That's a big offer. It's also a big risk, Carter continued. We have 48 hours to do something their entire military can't accomplish. If we fail, it will confirm everything they believe about humans being primitive and worthless. Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see alien ships moving frantically around the station. Emergency meetings were being held in every section. The crisis was spreading panic throughout the galactic community. What do we know about the mining station? He asked. Dr. Turner pulled up his notes. It's a standard industrial facility built into the surface of the planet. About 50 workers, all hegemony rebels wearing mechanical exoskeletons. The station is protected by automated defense systems and is built into underground tunnels. Underground tunnels on a high-gravity world, Jake mused. The rebels chose their position well. Even if the Council could get troops to the planet, fighting in confined spaces with heavy gravity would be nearly impossible for most species. Carter leaned forward. There's something else. Zektor mentioned that the rebels are using powered exoskeletons designed for standard galactic physiology. They're struggling with the gravity too, but they're better equipped to handle it than normal Council forces. Jake turned back to his crew. So we have 50 rebels in powered suits, automatic defenses, and a high-gravity environment that cripples most galactic species. The rebels are counting on the Council being unable to reach them. But we could, Katie said quietly. We're designed for high gravity. We could move normally while everyone else struggles. It's not that simple, Carter warned. This isn't a rescue mission or a repair job. This is combat. People will die. Jake nodded grimly. But if we don't try, galactic civilization might collapse, and Earth would be affected too. Dr. Turner closed his notes. There's another consideration. If we succeed, we prove that humans belong in the galactic community. If we fail, we confirm their prejudices and probably get banned from the galaxy forever. The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. Outside, the emergency lights continued to flash, and alien voices could be heard discussing the crisis in urgent tones. Finally, Jake spoke. I think we need to consider this carefully. This isn't just about helping the Council. It's about proving what humans can do when the galaxy needs us. Captain Carter stood up. I'll need to give Zektor an answer soon. Whatever we decide, we need to be united on it. Jake looked at each of his crew members. Katie Walsh nodded firmly. Dr. Turner took a deep breath and nodded as well. One by one, the others agreed. Then we're unanimous, Carter said. We'll take the mission. As she left to inform Council Prime Zektor of their decision, Jake felt a mix of fear and excitement. In 48 hours, humanity would either prove its worth to the galaxy or face humiliation and exile. Either way, Earth's children were about to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. Commander Jake Morrison stood in the modified transport ship, checking his equipment one last time. The vessel had been quickly fitted with Earth-standard gravity generators and reinforced hull plating. What had taken the aliens 3 days to modify human engineers could have done in hours, but Jake didn't complain. They were lucky to have any support at all. 20 humans were making this trip. Jake had chosen each one carefully. Katie Walsh would handle communications and technical systems. Dr. Turner would provide medical support and scientific analysis. The rest were military specialists, engineers, and security personnel from Earth's space program. The journey to mining station Alpha 7 took 18 hours. During that time, Jake's team studied every piece of intelligence the Council had provided. The mining station was built into the rocky surface of the planet with most of the facility underground. The rebels had positioned themselves in tunnels and chambers that would be difficult to assault. The automated defenses are our biggest concern, explained Sergeant Emma Torres, the team's tactical specialist. Energy weapons, motion sensors, and blast doors, all controlled from the main command center. Jake nodded, studying the station blueprints on his tablet. What about the rebels themselves? 50 of them, all wearing powered exoskeletons, Torres replied. The suits are designed to help them move in the heavy gravity, but they're still going to be slower than us. Katie looked up from her technical analysis. I've been studying their equipment. Those exoskeletons are built for standard galactic physiology. They'll help the rebels move, but they won't make them as strong or fast as a human. Dr. Turner added his own observations. The rebels have been on that planet for weeks now. Even with mechanical assistance, the heavy gravity will be wearing them down. Fatigue, stress on their organs, mental exhaustion. They're not built for long-term exposure to those conditions. As the transport ship approached the planet, Jake felt the artificial gravity increase to match the world below. 2.1 times Earth standard was heavy but manageable. He had trained in higher gravity conditions during his military service. His team had all volunteered for this mission knowing what they would face. The planet appeared on the main viewer, a dark ball of rock and metal with no atmosphere to speak of. The mining station was visible as a cluster of buildings and equipment on the surface, with deep shafts leading down into the planet's core. Beginning descent, announced the pilot. All personnel prepare for a high-gravity landing. The landing was rough but successful. As the ship's engines shut down, Jake felt the full weight of the planet's gravity settle on his shoulders. It was like wearing a heavy backpack, but nothing he couldn't handle. Everyone check your equipment, Jake ordered. From this point on, we're operating in a hostile environment. The team's gear was all Earth-standard military equipment. Heavy armor that would have been impossible for most aliens to wear. Weapons designed for beings with Earth-normal strength. Tools and explosives built to Earth specifications. In the heavy gravity, everything felt heavier than usual, but still manageable. Jake activated his communication system. Council Control, this is Morrison. We have landed successfully and are beginning the mission. The response came from Council Prime Zector himself. Understood, Commander. We are monitoring from orbit. You have 36 hours remaining. The human team moved out from their landing site toward the mining station. The planet's surface was barren and hostile, with jagged rocks and deep crevices everywhere. In the heavy gravity, each step required careful planning, but Jake noticed something important. While his team moved carefully, they moved with confidence. The rebels watching from the station probably expected them to struggle like other galactic species. Instead, they saw humans advancing steadily across terrain that would have stopped most aliens completely. Motion sensors are picking us up, Katie reported, monitoring the station's systems. The rebels know we're here. Almost immediately, automated weapons emerged from hidden positions around the station. Energy beams lanced out toward the human team, but the weapons were calibrated for standard galactic targets. The beams barely registered on human armor designed for Earth's harsh conditions. Return fire, Jake ordered. The humans' weapons roared to life. Projectile weapons that would have been too powerful for most species to handle. The automated defenses, built light and efficient for low-gravity users, shattered under the assault. Defenses down, Torres reported, moving to the main entrance. The station's blast door was thick metal designed to withstand normal galactic weapons. But human explosives were built for Earth's dense materials and high-stress environments. The charges Katie placed on the door blew it apart like tissue paper inside the station. The environment was even more challenging. Narrow corridors, low ceilings, and tight turns that would have been difficult for anyone to navigate in heavy gravity. But humans had evolved in caves and underground shelters. They were comfortable in confined spaces. The first group of rebels appeared at the end of a corridor, their powered exoskeletons making them look like mechanical monsters. They raised their weapons and fired. Jake dove to one side, his reflexes honed by a lifetime on Earth, allowing him to react faster than the rebels expected. The energy beams passed harmlessly over his head. "Their weapons are too weak," he shouted. To his team, "Press forward." The human assault was swift and decisive. Where the rebels moved with mechanical precision, the humans moved with fluid grace. Where the rebels' weapons barely scratched human armor, human weapons tore through alien equipment like it was made of cardboard. The rebels' exoskeletons, designed to help weak galactic physiology cope with heavy gravity, became liabilities in close combat. They were slow, clumsy, and limited the rebels' natural movement. Against humans who moved naturally in the heavy environment, they didn't stand a chance. "Command center is 2 levels down," Torres called out, checking her map. "We need to take control of the mining equipment." The team fought their way deeper into the station. Each level brought new challenges, but also new evidence of human superiority in this environment. The rebels were tiring quickly, their alien physiology struggling with the stress of combat in heavy gravity. The humans, meanwhile, were just getting warmed up. At one point, Jake found himself face-to-face with 3 rebels in a narrow tunnel. Their exoskeletons barely fit in the space, forcing them to move single file. Jake, relying on his natural agility, climbed along the tunnel wall and dropped behind them before they could react. "Humans above us!" One rebel shouted in panic, but it was too late. Jake's team had already surrounded them. The deepest level of the station housed the main command center and the leader of the rebels, Kralvash. When Jake's team burst through the final blast door, they found the rebel leader standing before the mining equipment's control panel. His finger hovered over a red button that would detonate the explosives and destroy everything. "Stop right there," Kralvash commanded, his voice shaking with exhaustion. "One more step and I destroy the entire facility." Jake held up his hand, signaling his team to halt. "You don't want to do that. Your people depend on the jobs here. Destroying the station hurts them more than it hurts the Council." "The Council doesn't care about my people," the rebel leader replied. "They see us as expendable labor, just like they see you humans as primitive animals." "Maybe," Jake said, stepping slowly forward. "But we're here now." "That has to account for something," Kralvash laughed bitterly. "You think this changes anything? Even if you stop me, the Council will never accept you as equals. You're just their attack dogs now." Jake continued moving forward, each step careful and deliberate. In the heavy gravity, Kralvash's exoskeleton was struggling to keep him upright. Sweat poured down his face and his movements were becoming erratic. "You might be right," Jake admitted. "But at least we'll have proven that heavy world evolution isn't a weakness. It's a strength." The rebel leader's finger tightened on the button, but Jake was already moving. Years of training in Earth's crushing gravity had given him reflexes that no alien could match. He covered the distance between them in a single bound, his hand closing over Kralvash's wrist before the rebel could react. The button remained unpressed. "It's over," Jake said quietly, as his team secured the remaining rebels. "The station is ours." Katie quickly moved to the control systems, her fingers flying over interfaces designed for alien physiology. "All charges disarmed," she reported. "Mining equipment is secure." Dr. Turner was already treating wounded rebels, his medical training taking over despite the fact that these aliens had been trying to kill them minutes earlier. "They're exhausted," he reported. "Weeks in heavy gravity have pushed their bodies past their limits." Jake activated his communication system. "Council Control, this is Morrison. Mission accomplished. The station is secure and the mining equipment is undamaged. The response came immediately, and Jake could hear the amazement in Council Prime Zektor's voice. "Confirmed, Commander. Outstanding work. We are dispatching ships to take custody of the rebels." As Jake looked around the command center, he realized something important had just happened. For the first time since arriving at the Galactic Station, humans had proven themselves not as primitive animals or useful laborers, but as the warriors and... Jake Morrison stood before the assembled Galactic Council, but this time everything was different. The same chamber that had witnessed humanity's humiliation 3 months ago was now filled with a very different energy. Where once there had been dismissive laughter and condescending whispers, now there was respectful silence. The footage of the mining station Alpha 7 assault had spread throughout the galaxy in record time. Every species with access to galactic communications had watched humans move with deadly grace through conditions that would have crushed most aliens. The image of Jake disarming Kralvash in a single fluid motion had become the most viewed recording in galactic history. Council Prime Zektor stood at the center of the chamber, but his posture was completely different from their first meeting. Gone was the arrogant certainty of alien superiority. In its place was something Jake had never expected to see: genuine respect. "Members of the Galactic Council," Zektor began, his voice carrying to every corner of the massive chamber. "We gather today to address the extraordinary actions of the human delegation and to reconsider our previous decisions regarding Earth's membership status." A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. Jake noticed that the aliens were sitting straighter, paying closer attention than they had during any previous session he had observed. The crisis at Mining Station Alpha 7 represented the greatest threat to galactic stability in over 2 centuries. Zektor continued, "Our finest military minds, our most advanced technology, and our most experienced strategists all declared the situation impossible to resolve through force." Dr. Turner, sitting beside Jake, whispered quietly, "He's actually admitting they were helpless." "Yet where we failed," Zektor said, "the humans succeeded. In less than 6 hours, they accomplished what we believed impossible. They secured the station, preserved the vital mining equipment, and captured the rebels with minimal casualties on either side." Ambassador Velnora of the Zephyrians stood up, her tall, graceful form swaying slightly in the station's artificial gravity. "Council Prime, we have all seen the recordings of the assault. The humans moved through 2.1 times standard gravity as if it were normal conditions. How is this possible?" Captain Carter rose from the human delegation's seats. This time, instead of being relegated to the back corner, they had been given places of honor near the center of the chamber. "Honored delegates," Carter began, "what you call our limitation is actually our greatest strength. Earth's gravity is more than 3 times what most of you consider normal. Every day of our lives, we carry the equivalent of 2 of yourselves on our backs. We are strong because our world demanded strength." A Vortani delegate spoke next, its crystalline voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "But surely this is just physical capability. What of intellectual development? Cultural refinement?" Dr. Turner stood up, his scientific training evident in his calm, measured response. "On Earth, intelligence and physical capability develop together. When your environment constantly challenges you, your mind learns to think quickly and adapt rapidly. We call it survival of the fittest." "The humans demonstrated more than just physical superiority," added a delegate from a species Jake didn't recognize. "Their tactical thinking, their ability to adapt to unknown situations, their willingness to take calculated risks. These are qualities our civilizations have lost through millennia of easy living." Jake watched the debate with fascination. The same aliens who had mocked human evolution were now analyzing it. With scientific curiosity and growing admiration, Council Prime Zektor activated a holographic display, showing galactic trade routes and resource locations. "The success at Alpha 7 has made us realize something important. There are 17 high-gravity worlds in Council space that contain valuable resources we cannot access. Worlds where our technology fails and our people cannot survive. Until now," added Ambassador Velnora, "we considered these worlds too dangerous to exploit. But with human assistance, they could become vital sources of materials and energy. Katie Walsh stood up from the human delegation. We're honored by your confidence, but we want to be clear about something. Earth seeks partnership, not employment. We're not here to be your heavy world miners or security forces. Of course not, Zektor replied quickly. We are offering full membership in the Galactic Council with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. Trade agreements, technology sharing, cultural exchange, and equal representation in all council decisions. The formal vote was unanimous. Every delegate in the chamber voted to grant Earth full membership in the Galactic Council. Jake felt a surge of pride as the official announcement was made, but he also noticed something else: fear in some of the alien faces. After the session ended, Jake and his team were approached by dozens of alien delegates. Each species wanted to discuss potential partnerships, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts. The same beings who had dismissed humans as primitive were now competing for their attention. Commander Morrison, called Ambassador Velnara as. The crowd began to thin. Might I speak with you privately? Jake followed the tall Zephyrion to a quiet corner of the chamber. Up close, he could see the nervous tension in her movements. I wanted to apologize for our initial reception of your people, she said quietly. We made assumptions based on incomplete understanding. Apology accepted, Jake replied. We all make mistakes when we encounter something new. Velnara nodded. Gratefully, then her expression became more serious. There's something else. My people's homeworld is under threat from seismic activity. Our cities are built from delicate crystal formations that cannot withstand heavy vibrations. We have no experience with disaster response in such conditions, Jake understood immediately. You need people who can work in unstable, dangerous environments. Would Earth consider a mutual assistance pact? Velnara asked hopefully. We offer our advanced materials technology in exchange for human expertise in crisis management. I'll discuss it with Captain Carter, Jake promised. But I think Earth would be very interested in that kind of partnership. Similar conversations happened throughout the following weeks. The Vortani requested human assistance with deep space construction projects that required strength and endurance. The hegemony wanted to hire human engineers for underwater cities on high-pressure worlds. Even species Jake had never heard of were sending representatives to negotiate with Earth. Dr. Turner was particularly excited about the scientific exchanges being offered. They're sharing technologies that are centuries ahead of ours, he told Jake during one of their planning sessions. Medical techniques, energy systems, faster-than-light communications. We're going to learn more in the next year than humanity has discovered in the past century. But the most significant development came when Council Prime Zektor approached Captain Carter with an unprecedented proposal. The Council has voted to establish a new position, he explained during a formal meeting. Director of Crisis Response, with authority to coordinate emergency operations throughout Council space. The position has never existed because we never needed it. Our worlds were stable, our technology reliable, our societies peaceful. Carter raised an eyebrow. And now? Now. We realize that the galaxy is not as safe as we believed. There are threats we cannot handle alone, worlds we cannot reach, challenges we cannot overcome with our current limitations. Zektor paused, then continued. The Council would like to offer this position to Earth, specifically to Commander Morrison. Jake felt his heart skip a beat. You want me to be in charge of Galactic Emergency Response? The position would come with its own fleet, a dedicated base on a strategically located world, and the authority to recruit personnel from any member species, Zektor explained. Essentially, you would be responsible for handling the situations that normal Council forces cannot manage. Captain Carter looked thoughtful. This would make Earth a major power in galactic politics. Earth already is a major power, Zektor replied. The vote simply acknowledges reality. Over the following months, Jake found himself commanding the first human naval base outside Earth's solar system. The facility was located on a high-gravity world that had been considered worthless by galactic standards. Now it served as a training center where humans taught other species how to operate in challenging environments. The base also became a symbol of humanity's new role in the galaxy. Ships from dozens of worlds brought their problems to Earth's representatives. Pirates hiding on heavy worlds, industrial accidents in dangerous environments, rescue operations in conditions that would kill most galactic species, all of it was handled by humans who had been forged in the crucible of Earth's relentless gravity. Standing on the observation deck of his new command center, Jake watched human and alien crews working together on their latest mission. A Zephyrian city was threatened by volcanic activity, and only human engineers had the experience to work safely in such conditions. "It's amazing how quickly things changed," Katie Walsh said, joining him at the window. 3 months ago, they thought we were too primitive for galactic civilization. Jake nodded, watching as a human crew in environmental suits worked alongside Zephyrian technicians. They learned something important. Strength isn't about having the most advanced technology.